Billions and soon trillions in value will be created in the autonomy economy. By the time a trend becomes consensus, the alpha is already gone. The gap between uncovering signals and reading headlines is widening fast. When it's a headline, it's no longer a signal. Enter Autonomy AI. We decode signals before they move markets, giving you the edge while everyone else tries to decipher the autonomy economy. Autonomy AI. Your models, our intelligence. Visit AUTNMY.ai.
Rob, another week. I'm on the road. It's becoming a common trait here. While I was busy on the road, you were monitoring the autonomy economy for our clients. We uncovered a lot of things, which we'll get to in a minute, but I went to Houston this time. The week before, I was in the Permian Basin with Kodiak. This week, I was in Houston. I visited the Tesla depot, went for a ride in unsupervised. We're going to have a field report coming out next week on that. I rode around in Waymos, and I learned how Houstonians drive, and we're going to get into that a little bit later on Autonomy Markets. And we were the first non-employees in the team to go witness Bot Auto go fully driver out, no human in the cab, from Houston to Dallas. And I want to clarify for the audience, this was not the Woodlands. This was all the way South Houston through Houston traffic, which is notoriously bad. 40 minutes to get anywhere. That's what I was up to. And for the audience, once again, I'm on the road next week for more content to bring to you through the Road to Autonomy platform. But Rob, let's get to the signals this week. This week, the signals are WeRide and Lenovo. They're scaling. They've got a partnership. We're going to get into that. Copper mining goes autonomous at Pronto. First deal since Lewandowski and Kalnick rehooked up again. And no surprise, Bot Auto goes driver out. But let's start with WeRide and Lenovo. What did you uncover using a proprietary Omega algorithm about this partnership?
Thanks, Grayson. Glad to see you back at home for a brief period of time. You are certainly our rambling man. So what Omega has uncovered is Beijing-based Lenovo, founded back in 1984, and now the world's largest PC manufacturer, is joining forces with WeRide, the 9-year-old pioneer out of Guangzhou in autonomous driving. And the goal of this partnership is over the next 5 years to deploy 200,000 autonomous vehicles worldwide. This marks, I think, perhaps the most ambitious announcement on scaling in the autonomous mobility market. So this collaboration was announced by the two Chinese companies at Auto China 2026, which was in Beijing. By the way, Auto China 2026, or Auto China generally in any year, is now the world's largest car show. Think about that. Think about what that transition has meant for domestic manufacturers here in the US, that the largest car show in the world is now out of Beijing. The announcement between Lenovo and WeRide does build on an already existing relationship. So back in 2025, Lenovo and WeRide launched what they call the HPC3 high-performance computing platform, which has been deployed already in the mass-produced WeRide Robotaxi GXR. And we've got to remember, this is a really big deal because WeRide has one of the biggest testing footprints in all of the world right now. And they are testing or have operations in over 40 cities across 12 countries with permits and markets including China, the UAE, Singapore, France, Belgium, and yes, even in the United States. Omega tells us that they have about 1,023 vehicles deployed in its fleet as of January 2026. So they're announcing a 200x scale in the next 5 years, which we can talk about whether or not we think that's realistic. But man, oh man, are their ambitions huge.
Their ambitions are huge, and we saw the reports coming out of Auto China with the announcements. It's very clear that, as we've clearly called it, China wants to export their autonomous Belt and Road initiative, and they're going globally. And you articulated on several past episodes about the UAE in the Middle East perhaps being that middle ground where you have American-made and deployed autonomous vehicles, then you have Chinese-made and Chinese-built autonomous vehicles deployed in the UAE. So that's going to get interesting. But to go from 1,023 vehicles to 200,000, you need a lot of manufacturing, which China clearly has. You need a lot of exporting, and as what we're seeing, the Strait of Hormuz is not open. So, one, do you think that they're going to be able to achieve this 200,000 vehicle goal? And two, where are these vehicles going? And I ask that just currently based on world politics, where China's saying, nope, we're gonna slow down the deployment of L4 on the mainland. You can't really go to the UAE because of the war. Where do you see this going?
That's a great question. I think, first of all, we haven't seen any of the kind of capital allocation here necessary to achieve this scale. We don't have anything of concrete intelligence about where these vehicles will go, when they will go there. Is it a backloaded ramp, meaning, in the next year or two, they go to 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000, and then all of a sudden they backload scale in multiple markets at 80,000 or 90,000 vehicles. I think, you know, from the perspective of where they could deploy, they do have opportunity both domestically, right? These are two Chinese companies coming together, so it's not like they couldn't deploy in the Chinese market, though currently, as of last week, there is a freeze on expanding deployments in China based upon some issues that Baidu had last month. But they could look domestically to deploy it. They could look at some of their international markets to deploy. I think some of the interesting questions that will come along include issues not only about where, but as you mentioned, supply chain, both in terms of cost in manufacturing, which in China they should be able to cover, but also in terms of the chips behind it, right? And so that's the key aspect in this announcement is they talk a lot about this new compute platform, the HPC3 platform. And this platform meets ASIL D functional safety certification. It meets AEC Q100, ISO 26262, and ITF standards, which are three foundational automotive qualification frameworks for electronics reliability, functional safety, and quality management. And it also carries certifications for extreme temperature and global emissions. I mention all that because that does say that at least from the chip standpoint and certification issues, that they have met a lot of the standards that would allow them to use this chip to enable international scaling. The real question becomes, though, is the use of the NVIDIA Drive AGX Thor chips, which is powering the HPC3 platform here, and whether or not there'll be a plentiful enough supply of those NVIDIA chips to power 200,000 vehicles. So I think it's not only constraints that you mentioned in terms of what's going on in geopolitics and what markets might be able to assume such volume, but it also goes back to can they get the chips to produce this volume? Because the platform itself has a lot of great benefits to it in the certifications that it meets, but can it scale? We shall see. A lot of the details on this are missing, and so we'll have to continue to follow some of the breadcrumbs to see if this scale is something that is obtainable or even near obtainable in the next 5 years.
Well, we're very good at following details. We're going to look for corporate filings. We'll look for expos. And that's where our Omega proprietary algorithm comes in, does that heavy lifting for us there to give us the data to analyze. I want to highlight two critical signals, or if you want to say hints, that you uncovered there. Extreme temperature resilience, global emissions compliance. What is that signal? Extreme temperature, where it can go over 110, in some cases 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the UAE. That's a signal, that's potentially there. And emissions compliance is a signal for the European Union. It seems that in this press release and the public filings that we have, there's signals inside of the broad-based messaging. Am I reading that right? Am I thinking about this right, based on the regulatory environment and the weather environment in both of those operating environments?
Absolutely. I think that is the kind of way to parse this language out, right? So we know WeRide is active with Uber in the Middle East, including in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Riyadh, right? And Tawasal, which is a local fleet management operator and taxi service, is also a separate partnership that they have in the UAE for WeRide vehicles on the Uber platform. So we know WeRide is very ingrained in what's going on in the UAE and what's going on in Saudi Arabia. I'd also wouldn't leave out what's going on with them in Grab in Singapore, another high temperature place and locale for potential assumption of vehicles at this volume. I think what's going to be really interesting on the end of the emission scale is, does emissions alone clear enough hurdles in the EU? I don't think so, but I don't think it hurts, right? I think emissions is something super important in terms of transitioning to electric vehicles, in terms of meeting some of the regulatory requirements at the local level for deployments. We know a lot of the Nordic countries very much value electrification and reduction in emissions. We know even in places like London, which is outside the EU now officially, but if you lump them in geographically, emissions reduction is another key goal there as well. So I do think you're reading those signals correctly. I also think it'll be interesting to see in these markets, right? WeRide has done something really interesting. In their international markets, they've gone with an asset light strategy. And so what that means is that they're pushing off they're allowing vehicle sales to partners. They're making money off of the software licensing and revenue sharing, with the fleet ownership residing on their partner's balance sheet. And so it'll be interesting to see what the capital cost allocations of their partners are, because they're basically saying, hey, a tremendous amount of this fleet ownership cost, if not all of it, at these volumes fall on you. And what Omega estimates is the cost of direct fleet ownership for a deployment of 200,000 vehicles is between $10 and $20 billion. So that's about $50,000 to $100,000 per vehicle. And there's been no indication of a funding event that WeRide is going to be the owner operator here. To use your legal skills, adjacent legal skills, in parsing the terms of this agreement, we see jointly deploy language in the announcement. And so to me, that is another signal that we're looking at a collaborative deployment ecosystem, not necessarily a WeRide balance sheet expansion.
Yeah, because if we look at the public filings from WeRide, you just look at their market cap, they're not 10 to 20 billion. One, the market cap's not even there, and they do not have the debt instruments or the assets to get a loan against that. And the question is there an international body that is looking to take on 10 to 20 billion in assets, manage the fleet, do the depreciation, do the insurance? That's unknown at that number. And today, nothing has achieved that number in terms of fleet size in dollar spent. So that's something to watch. I mean, if you really look at it, the big risk in this is the capital. The announcement's great, that the headline is great, but where's the substance? We always talk about where's the signals, where's the substance? There's no substance here. It is a great signal for where WeRide's ambitions are. And I'll give you a fun little tidbit here. In 1984, when Lenovo was founded, the company was originally called Legend because they wanted to build a legendary company. That's Lenovo. Years later, it had to get changed so they couldn't get international trademarks for the name Legend, hence Lenovo. Also, we do know that Lenovo is the largest manufacturer of computers, PCs, today in the world. And they previously bought IBM's ThinkPad business. So Lenovo, if you want to use the term legend, has grand ambitions. The question is, who will be the financing partner to make these grand ambitions scale? And do we see a public filing perhaps at a later date where Lenovo has taken a significant stake in WeRide, either through their Hong Kong listing or their New York listing? Something to watch. And that brings us to the risks on this deal. One of the risks that Omega highlights here is the commercial commitment is not a production verification. Again, goes back to details matter. A partnership announcement of a 5-year, 200,000 vehicle target is a commercial commitment, not a production verification. The GXR's current production status demonstrates the HPC 3.0 can be integrated into a mass-produced vehicle. It does not demonstrate that the supply chain, manufacturing capacity, or supply software, hardware, co-development pipeline can sustain the implied steady state run of approximately 40,000 units annually. The announcement is consistent with technical readiness, got to give them credit there, but it is not proof of production scalability of that order of magnitude. Omega's right. The heart's in the right place where they want to go, but the substance is not necessarily there yet. So that is a good risk to uncover.
Agreed. And look, we said at the beginning, this is a grand ambition, and the quotes that were released with the press release, right, do talk about how the WeRide founder and CEO, Tony Han, is really trying, I think, to put pressure on those that he's competing against both domestically and internationally by saying, really, the technological capability is there. This is all about who's got the most support to scale deployment. And there's no better way to kind of grab people's attention than to say, guess what? We're ready to 200x our deployment scale in the next 5 years. That is a real shot across the bow to Baidu, to Waymo, to others who are competing across the globe. And we'll need to really follow this closely, because while technical readiness is great, there, as you've talked about for years, as I've talked about for years, there's so much more that needs to go into this cake in order for it to be ready to be sold to the public. And it's chips, it's infrastructure, it's maintenance, it's operations. And right now, there is no details here how WeRide, or its partners for that matter, are ready to solve that at a scale that we've never seen before.
100% correct. And you're right. You just can't put flour in a pot, put it in the oven, and hope it's going to make a cake. No, and this is not how Betty Crocker became famous. It won't work. Which brings us to the next risk, which you alluded to: third-party operator capacity. The asset-light model transfers fleet ownership risk to partners, but those partners must themselves be capitalized and willing to acquire vehicles at scale. If Uber, Grab, Tulsol, based in the Middle East here, or other named operators do not commit to vehicle acquisition at the implied volumes, the deployment target stalls regardless of WeRide's technology readiness. So we have to look for a binding order. The technology is clearly there, but the question is, are the partners ready to put up the cash to make that happen?
Agreed. And we see this. This is not unique to WeRide. We've run into these type of announcements in the past. I think there are valuable lessons to be learned from them, signals about where fleets might be deployed, what it means for their technical readiness, what it means for their supply chains, what it means for their potential capital backers, new potential capital backers. But an announcement does not necessarily, without the binding capital commitments and the binding deployment commitments, itself prove that these things will happen. You know, there's an old phrase in the law, reps ipsa loquitur, which means the thing stands for itself. That is not the case here. This announcement does not for itself and in and of itself stand as proof that this scale is going to be achieved.
We're going to have to watch it. And this brings us to our last risk, which you can potentially say is the most important risk outside of financing, is infrastructure build-out risk. WeRide has structured its model so that it does not need to build or own depots, charging stations, or maintenance facilities. This is a capital efficient and strategically defensible, but it means that WeRide's deployment velocity in any given market is a function of its partners' willingness and ability to invest in that market's physical infrastructure. And those partners have their own capital allocation priorities, their own regulatory timelines, and their own relationships with competing AV providers. And Omega gives a great example here for this risk, which I'll read to the audience. If Uber, for example, decides to prioritize another partner, which they have several AV partners that compete against WeRide for depot network, or if a local operator in a Middle Eastern market faces permitting delays for a charging facility, WeRide has limited direct leverage to accelerate the outcome. What's the old saying? He who writes the check controls the outcome. That's. I love the ambitions. I'm unsure how this cake is going to come together, and we're going to get a successful outcome here.
I think the infrastructure is really key in this sense, particularly because they're relying on their third party partners as part of their asset light strategy. Um, I think what we do not understand yet is how WeRide's partners, right? They have many, we've named them here, but none of them were named in this announcement. And so I found that kind of telling as well. Is WeRide investigating its own model that's perhaps owner operator as they do in China? Are they still all in on an asset light model? I tend to think they want to go asset light. I just think that they are here signaling that they're ramping up the pressure on their competitors in this space, that they want to make some noise. They're looking, I think, for some external validation of what they might seem to believe is an undervalued progress, right? And so I think part of this announcement is to basically say, hey, technical readiness, you just have to assume that going forward. We have that. And they're looking for that validation that, oh, yes, just as we're doing here, you are ready. We're not questioning their technical readiness, and maybe we should, or maybe we shouldn't. It's hard to tell. We haven't ridden one of their vehicles. We need to get out there, and perhaps if they want to invite us out, we'll love to take a ride. But what's clear is that they're trying to say we're technically ready. We're getting pieces of the scaling ingredients ready for our cake, and more is to come.
More is to come, and you're right. We'll gladly go to the UAE to learn about their depots, ride in their vehicles, meet management, learn about operations. And Rob and I will produce a field report. So we'd love to take you up if you're so kind to invite us there. The unfortunate part on this, which brings us to Omega's take before I read it, is you're starting to see the term used non-binding. And I'm having flashbacks of the SPAC bubble, the early days of autonomy with grandiose ambitions, grandiose press releases, and specifically using the term non-binding means non-binding. It's not binding. And unfortunately, that term has come up quite a bit this week, which brings us to Omega's take. Omega assesses that the 200,000 vehicle figure is a non-binding, there's that word, strategic target operating within a co-option agreement framework, and that the partnership will not generate verifiable commercial volume commitments until three conditions are met: proof of production scalability, binding fleet operator procurement agreements with named counterparties, and material contract disclosure in WeRide's regulatory filings. Omega's right. Omega's saying, okay, I appreciate the ambitions, I appreciate the announcement, but details matter. We need to see an SEC filing to determine really what's going on here. What's your take on Omega's take?
I think Omega's correct. I think this is one of the reasons Omega is so powerful. It sees through the BS, so to speak. It is saying, yes, we are following you. We understand you. These are great targets. You've got some good details on here on the compute platform, some really good progress there in terms of the technical certifications, in terms of its ASIL-D certification, right? You've got automotive grade compute going on. You've got a partnership with a really sound financial company, and who's traditionally been in the PC space, but it has the wherewithal and sound balance sheet to be a long-term committed partner. Those are really great aspects of this announcement, right? And so I don't mean to demean that, but Omega is seeing right through some of it and saying, okay, yeah, you even put out the clickbait, right? 200,000 vehicles, that's a huge, huge scale. But Omega is saying, we need to see more. in order to fully believe that this is the path that you're on, we need to see three things that show that this non-binding strategic uh, target is real and has the pathway to become real. And so, the three things that Omega called out, production scalability, procurement agreements, and material contract disclosures, are absolutely the right signals to look for going forward to see if WeRide can follow through with its grand ambitions here. And look, I'm not saying they won't, but right now, jury's still out. We need to see more ingredients in that cake before I'm even willing to take a bite of it.
We need more ingredients. We don't. Rob has to have a yummy cake. Yummy tummies for yummy cakes. He needs more ingredients in his cake.
I'm a connoisseur. I eat my cake with my pinky up.
Oh boy, here we go. See that this is the fun thing about this. Omega's going to keep doing the due diligence on WeRide for us. Rob's going to keep eating his cake with his pinky up. So this is a topic that we'll continue to look for signals, and that's one of the great things about our proprietary Omega algorithm that we wrote. It surfaced signals early. Some signals Omega surfaces months, 2 months, 3 months, and even in some cases almost a year in advance has surfaced. And if you want to learn more about our Omega algorithm, respond to this video, reach out to us on social media, because the Omega algorithm and the show is to keep your audience informed before it becomes news. Which brings us to our next signal. They're back. Travis Kalanick and Anthony Lewandowski are back in business together again. Atoms, which is Travis's holding company that's rolling up all the automation and autonomy, acquired Pronto, which Travis was prior to this the largest independent shareholder. Pronto has announced a deal with Mariana Minerals to do fully autonomous haulage in the mining industry. What do you know about this partnership? What do you make of this signal, and where's the signal Travis is going?
Yeah, so Mariana Minerals is a relatively new company founded, I think, in 2024. It's the world's only software-first vertically integrated minerals company, which, only about, I don't know, maybe a year ago, recently announced the restart of the intention to restart mining operations at the Copper One mines in southeastern Utah. So Marianas is partnering with Pronto for the use of Pronto's autonomous haulage trucks. Pronto has this turnkey autonomous haulage system, which uses camera-based machine learning and global navigation satellite systems to enable fully driverless haul truck operation with OEM agnostic retrofit capability across mixed fleets. So that retrofit aspect is really unique, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. It's the first deal that, as you mentioned, Pronto has struck since being acquired by Atoms. Also, by the way, just today, April 30th, Pronto announced plans to expand the use of its AHS, the autonomous haulage system, deployments to 2 additional Heidelberg materials sites across North America. So Pronto is on a roll this month. They're doing some great work, both with this expansion into Southeast Utah with Marianas and with the expansion of its product and use of its product in the Heidelberg sites across North America. The other interesting thing I thought, 2 things about this deal when it was announced just this week. Marianas Minerals is even using Boston Dynamics Spot Robot Dog to patrol the 10,000 acre site. So when they're going all in on AI and AV at Marianas, which is amazing and good to see. But one of the reasons to use the autonomous hauling system of Pronto is that Marianas and Pronto in their announcement are saying that it reduces refining costs by 30% and mining costs by 50%, which is amazing if those hold true. And the reason to target what Copper One is doing is that they want to get about 50,000 metric tons of annual copper cathode out of this mine. The incentive to do so is that copper is currently trading at roughly $13,000 per metric ton. And so if you can reduce the mining costs of getting copper out of the ground at this site by 50%, and it's trading at $13,000 per metric ton, and you want to do 50,000 metric tons, you've got a tidy little business at just one site. And so it's a really interesting use case, a really interesting way to show that autonomy can be cost effective and cost efficient, can operate in these really interesting landscapes, and to do so while increasing revenue, and in this case, bringing a site back. This site, Copper One, was not an operating site. This is not about cost reduction, like human head cost reduction, right? This site was not workable, was not active. And because of the savings in using autonomous systems and what Mariana is doing throughout the entire site with the use of Pronto and some other autonomous capabilities like Spot from Boston Dynamics, they are reviving the site. And I think that's a really interesting thing about what is happening in southeastern Utah this month.
Mariana, they built their own proprietary operating system to have all of these different technologies work, Mariana OS. It doesn't just stop there. They built out a private 5G network to enable us. No signs or signals if they put Starlink or any sort of satellite backup, but we do know they built a proprietary 5G network there. Interesting on the Pronto deployment, it's 3 trucks to start. They're upfitting it with plans for more that are being remotely supervised. I'm not saying they're not operating time. I'm saying remotely supervised. It seems that Mariana is laying the groundwork for something big here with an operating system that Pronto is integrating with the proprietary closed 5G network. It seems to me that the early signals are here. It's not, okay, let's just partner with Pronto for 3. It seems that, okay, let's get this up to dozens, if not tens of dozens, is where it's going. Am I reading these signals right?
I think the intent here is to get to at least 15 vehicles on this site. And what they really want to do with their Mariana operating system, of which both Boston Dynamics and Pronto in this case are a part of, is that they want like kind of a full stack mine orchestration. And with coordinated decision making, everything from autonomous dispatch and route coordination without human in the loop control to remote supervised operations. And so I think this is both very architecturally complex than you see with most single vendor deployments, but it also goes to show just how an ecosystem, even though it's just at one site, can really develop into different layers and scales of efficiency, of operational capacity, of operational dependency upon autonomy. Again, the way I read what is happening at Copper One is that without autonomy, this site sits adrift and non-usable. With autonomy, this site becomes perhaps a source of real revenue for Mariana. And so that is a huge kind of feather in the cap for complex autonomy architecture and the Mariana's operating system that you mentioned, for the work that Pronto is doing, for the work that Boston Dynamics is doing there. It's just something we haven't seen before in terms of we're going all in on autonomy.
We haven't seen it before, and let's give some numbers here. Mariana Minerals, they raised $120 million to build out this grand ambition. When I say grand ambition, it's integrating the Pronto trucks, as you clearly stated, 3 to 15. For the audience, that will be by the end of the year. Okay, that's by the end of the year. That is the stated goal. The $120 million is not just to fund the Pronto pilot. It is to build out the various Mariana operating systems to enable autonomy fully to scale. The really interesting thing about the Pronto deployment is the vehicles are upfitted. So they're not building bespoke vehicles. Anthony and the team are, if you want to say, upgrading, or use the term enhancing those vehicles to get it to go, which is a really great cost efficient way as Mariana brings us on. One thing that I think that we need to watch is, how does the Pronto system integrate with Mariana OS over time? I think that's something going to be really curious to watch there, especially as Mariana adds on other vendors. Just everybody play nice in the same sandbox. The 120 million is a great start. Won't perhaps get you to full blown commercialization, but is a really, really good start to achieve that.
It is. It is. And I think, what I really appreciate about what Pronto is doing here is, again, this kind of OEM agnostic upfit retrofit design. That is different than a purpose-built autonomous vehicle. The model that we're seeing used mainly, but not exclusively, but by their competitors in this space, which would be Caterpillar and Komatsu, right? So Pronto's system installs onto the existing fleet equipment, and this avoids the deep mechanical and electronic integration that would require to interface with proprietary OEM drivetrains and control architectures, which can oftentimes be the primary source of cost and delay in legacy fleet automation programs. And so I think seeing the value that Pronto brings, as we talked about, but also seeing, can it scale? Can they do these hardware retrofits fast enough to get to 15 vehicles by the end of the year is also another interesting aspect about what the announcement portends. And if they can do these retrofits or upfits that quickly, and they can work, then they can be integrated into the operating system there, I think that will be a really proven use case for others to look at Pronto and say, you know what, if they can do it with Mariana, they can do it with us as well. And, the vehicles, by the way, I mean, we're not talking, you might imagine the cost of a construction vehicle or mining vehicle, a haulage vehicle, they're extraordinarily high. And so being able to go to current mines and mining operators and say, hey, you don't need to purchase a brand new purpose-built AV. I can take your existing truck and turn it autonomous, and you still get those mining cost reductions that we were able to provide Mariana, I think could provide Pronto a huge advantage over those purpose-built AV companies.
It could, and it could open up the market for Pronto for mid-sized and junior-sizing mining operations, because historically they operate under financial constraints, where they're going to call it their larger big brothers do not, where they're publicly traded and have billions in free cash flow, don't do it. So perhaps that Pronto, if you want to use the term, the mid-market, perhaps they can carve out that Ford Focus, that Toyota Camry market for mining. And if so, you just look at global car numbers, that is a very profitable, very big market. And like Travis, don't like Travis, the gentleman has proven he can scale a business, and the gentleman has proven he has cojones. There's no other way to say it. The gentleman has proven he has cojones, and he can scale a business, and he's not afraid of a regulatory battle. So listen, we're going to continue to watch it to see where Pronto goes, especially as it gets fully integrated into Atoms, and as Atoms, we learn more about Atoms. Which brings us to our risks here, because we always have to talk about the risks here. One of the risks that Omega highlights here is the operational performance under production conditions. Camera plus GNSS navigation may degrade in high dust, low visibility, or GPS occluded pit environments. No throughput of uptime data is public yet, so we don't know. A confirmation signal will be that the Mariana releasing operational KPIs for third-party site assessments by Q3 2026. Operating in dust is no joke. When Kodiak was so kind to host us out in the Permian Basin, man, that dust comes out of nowhere and it nearly blinds you. So the dust is a very big element to watch. It's something we need to see there.
100%, right? And I think this is part of what we were just discussing on the value that Pronto could bring, given that the hardware retrofits happen so quickly, right? This deal obviously in motion before it's announced in a week or two ago, but by today they're up and running the technology. So the upgrades happen quickly. Now, will they work under these conditions is really the question, right? It's a lot of fancy words that we've used here, but will it work with a lot of dust? And we shall see. But you're right. I mean, dust is no joke on whether it's in the pit and the sands of the Permian Basin, and even as you're operating robo-taxis in the Middle East, to go back to WeRide and others operating in the Middle East, the huboobs, which are a fancy term for dust storms that come by. you need to be able to see in those conditions, and you can't just pull over and stop in a pit when it gets dusty, because it's always dusty. And so really, this will be a true test of, will that quick retrograde or retrofit, will that lead to actual operational capacity, or will there be constraints on that capacity? And so it'll be interesting to see what comes out of some of the operational KPIs or third-party site assessments that hopefully Mariana will release in the coming quarters.
Hopefully, because that will give us more data to analyze, which brings us to our next risk. Pilot to scale execution risk. Expanding from 3 to 15 trucks by year-end 2026 requires repeatable retrofit processes and sustained system reliability. Failure to hit 15 truck target would indicate the model is more site-specific than the thesis implies. You're right, because we're very good at reading between the lines. There was not an announcement of a Roush or a world-renowned upfitter to upfit these vehicles. That wasn't included there, so we need to watch that.
100%. It'll be really interesting, because I'm focused on that speed, because if speed can be a differentiator in this market, right? So folks who know me know my kids play hockey. All the coaches say one thing: speed kills, right? And here, that can be the same for this business. If you can retrofit quickly and effectively, that can seriously change your go-to-market motion if you're Pronto, in terms of how you can approach additional vendors to really upscale their existing mining equipment into autonomous equipment.
Then there's the risk for Mariana that Omega highlighted here. The AHS value is partly contingent on the Mariana OS, MineOS platform functioning as described. If the software-defined dispatch layer underperforms, the autonomous haulage layer loses its coordination advantage. So that's something to watch as well. So you have the upfit, and then you have the software. So everything has to coordinate as a beautiful symphony at Carnegie Hall. That's what has to happen.
Well, yes, it has to wind up in a beautiful symphony of architectural complexity, as we've talked about. And so we will see. I mean, so far they're about a week into it, a couple of days of operating. So far, so good. But I'm not sure it's been fully stress tested enough to definitively say that the integration has been successful.
Which brings us to Omega's take. Omega has I would say a very balanced, well-informed, well-researched, and she does really good here, researching on her own, fully autonomous, I'll have you know. And her Omega's take is this: Omega assesses that Pronto's successful integration at Copper One establishes the OEM agnostic retrofit model as technically viable for legacy mining fleet automation, shifting the industry debate from feasibility to scalability. The thesis is confirmed if Mariana reaches 15 autonomous trucks at Copper One by Q4 2026, and if Pronto announces at least one additional mining customer within 12 months of the April 2026 deployment. Omega, always being on top of things, says, note, Pronto announced an expansion of their partnership just today with Heidelberg Materials. Okay, that was a pre-existing one. Either observable would indicate the model generalizes behind a single bespoke partnership. That's right. So you had this partnership with Heidelberg. Now you have the Copper One. Can you add a third? Can you add a fourth? Really interesting there.
Very much so. I love it. It comes down to scale. It comes down to integration. It comes down to speed. These are the things that will dictate kind of the success trampoline of this site and partnership. And I mean, trampoline in the sense that if it works really well, this could really bounce both companies forward tremendously, more so than a standing jump would, or if you're me, more than my 1-inch vertical standing jump would provide. So I think this could have a real trampoline effect if things go well.
It could, and if it does go well, it will validate what Travis is building with Atoms, and so that's something to watch. Which brings us to the last signal here, which we're gonna reverse it here. I'm gonna pass the hockey puck to Rob here, because signal 3, we were very fortunate, and frankly, we were honored Our team at Autonomy AI was the first non-employee team to witness Bot Auto go 231 miles. No driver, no human observer in the cab, no individual with a CDL, no human. And you might say, how did that happen? Well, I have a little thing called an inspector hat, and I poked my head in there with my inspector hat to check out the truck before it left. No human observer. We did the entire ride. We were not in the truck. We were in a vehicle following it and monitoring its progress to produce the first ever Road to Autonomy field report with Bot Auto, what we discovered. So, with that intro being said, Rob, the puck is yours for Signal 3, sir.
Yeah, no, this is a great achievement. Super excited for the folks at Bot. I think, given my experience in autonomy, both with Lyft and Aurora and then Cruise, and particularly at Cruise, when we went driver out, I know how much work and how much precision and how much hand wringing and advanced planning it takes to have one of these moments. And it's a big moment when you can do it. It's not a spur of the moment thing. It has many layers to it, from being from the safety angle, from the engineering angle, from the regulatory angle. And it really is something that companies take as seriously as they can, because it's a huge moment. It is one of those moments that you mark in time in the history of a company. And so the fact that they were able to accomplish this and that you were there is really great. And so, you've known and have been following Bot for a while. So has Omega. Give our audience a sense of the company's trajectory leading this announcement, what you know about kind of the capital that takes to get there, and some of what lies behind why going humanless, I think is what they said in their press announcement. Why that's such a big deal for a company like Bot.
This is Bot's second driver out humanless operation. The first was a validation run. Omega went through filings, was able to uncover, but for the first run, Bot spent $41 million to achieve the first humanless run. We do not have an exact figure for what it took to get to the 231 mile run today, so don't want to speculate on that. What we really saw was the culmination of everything that we're watching on Bloomberg, we're watching on CNBC, we're reading in the Financial Times, we're reading in the Wall Street Journal. AI is accelerating the world, and physical AI, to use the Jensen term, is just accelerating this. What we witnessed at Bot Auto would not have been possible 18, 24 months ago. And why is that? It is because of the acceleration of AI in the models that are getting really, really good. The journey that we experienced, we left from a commercial trucking lot outside of Houston. And when I say outside of Houston, I want to clarify for the audience, this was all the way down around Katy. And for those that know Houston, this is not the Woodlands. This is down in Katy in an industrial park. And it was mixed traffic. There were commercial trucks operating out of that lot, and then Bot Auto was operating their fully autonomous truck out of that lot. Gravel. It went on surface streets to get on the highway, made lots of changes. And having the opportunity to experience this historical moment was frankly magical. We're going through Houston, we're going over the overpasses, and the truck or the vehicle would gently move around. And there was a individual, and this was verified, and Bot Auto will be releasing this video, that was clocked at going 90 miles an hour on a motorcycle as we're going around this big turn, going by the circus in Houston, and cut the truck off, and the truck just gently moved over on this overpass that was hundreds of feet in the air without a problem. If you're a human driver, you would have been freaked out because the motorcycle went in the breakdown lane. And so you saw all this crazy stuff, and you sit back and say, okay, well, how is this achievable for what we know, 41 million? We don't know the exact number over that. It's because it goes back to the technology. And it was a paid commercial run, which we independently verified with Ryan Transportation. It arrived there on time, and this is the future. Over-the-road trucking is going autonomous, and you will see the Kodiaks of the world, the Auroras of the world, this year, hopefully, if everything goes according to the press release and public statements, we'll be operating this as well. Because having done that ride, it is not comfortable. And individuals say to me, "Oh, well, it's nighttime. It's nighttime." There's traffic in Houston at nighttime. There is road construction. There was a lot of police officers on that road because there were accidents and there were crashes on that journey. That's a horrible job for an individual to do. And when you remove the human from the factor, that cargo can move. And why is that important? Because that lowers inflation and lower the cost of goods. And what we witnessed with Bot, as I said earlier, we'll be releasing as a field report next Tuesday, was impressive. I think it is the first of many good things to come for Bot Auto and the autonomous trucking industry as a whole, because Bot Auto proved you can remove the driver from an 18-wheeler and delivered paid on-time cargo.
And another thing that Omega, to add to your great color of what happened in that evening, one thing that Omega verified for us is that Bot is stating a cost per mile of $1.89 for humanless operations against an industry estimated $2.26 cost per mile for human-driven trucks. And so I think not only is the technical achievement grand, this was a paid run, so that's a commercial achievement as well, but give me a sense of like what you think that figure means, that reduction in cost. I think that's about 40 cents or a little shy of 40 cents per mile from the industry average. What do you think it means for the central kind of commercial viability claim of Bot and others?
For the commercial viability, it proves at scale, not to say at scale, that the model will work and you will eventually get to profitability. And I say the model because unlike their peers, Bot Auto is owning the asset on their balance sheet and they are operating it as a trucking company, where their peers are getting software recurring licenses. So if you go from $2.26 for a human-driven truck to $1.89, that is a big swing there. That with owning the asset, that at scale, and we have not done the math, if it's 100 trucks, 1,000 trucks, whatever it might be, it proves that there is a path to building a profitable truck business. And if you look at profitable truck businesses, your best operators, these are human operators, are running at about a 6% margin. Industry average is closer to 4, maybe a little bit lower. So even any percentage point over 6% is a huge, huge win. And let's not forget, if you bought it, a truck brought it. That's a line that I've learned from all my friends in trucking.
Love it. I love it. Well, let's get to some of Omega's risk factors here. And the first risk factor it calls out, or she calls out, is validation cycle duration as a structural ceiling. So I think you mentioned this was the second of a variant of a humanless ride. And I believe, according to Omega, there's about 7 months between the first run and the second run. And so Omega's risk is as follows. If each new corridor requires approximately 7 months of validation before commercial activation, Bot Auto's ODD expansion, ODD meaning operational design domain expansion rate, is capped at one or two new lanes per year under current resourcing. So the confirming observable for can this scale and close the validation timeline cycle would be a third commercial lane announcement more than 6 months after the launch that you attended the other night. What do you think of that?
I think if you, and I know I'm comparing and contrasting, and well, Bank of America, this wonderful report, Martin Briggs, the team that the AI has left the chat. If you look at the iterations between OpenAI, Codex, if you look between the different Opus models and Anthropic, the release windows are getting shorter and shorter. So you can sit here and make the argument, well, that's software, this is hardware, but at the end of the day, it's the software that's powering it. I believe, based on what I saw, the next, and I'll make a prediction here, the next logical lane will be Dallas to Houston. So right now, the trucks are, just for full clarification of what we learned, the trucks are going fully autonomous, no human, from Houston to Dallas. I believe the next lane will be Dallas to Houston. And then perhaps you will see the lanes emerge in the Texas Triangle. So 7 months, let's just be conservative. And let's say the next lane will be 6 months. And the next lane will be 5 months. And then I believe that then you're going to see this go across the industry, that you're probably looking at a validation period of 3 months. And then maybe when things are fully going, you're looking at 2 months. And that's going to be across the industry. So as the technology perfects, the next one I'll say will be 6 months, and eventually gradually work its way down to 3 months, and then maybe hyperscaling 2 months. And I believe that's how the industry will go to bring lanes on as well.
Very interesting. I think I agree, and I see it in Texas playing out differently. I just spent last night reviewing the new regulations for commercial vehicles over 10,000 pounds, so big trucks in California that the California DMV put out last night. And they have a kind of a mileage-based validation requirement that we can get into on a different podcast, a different Autonomy Signals podcast. And what will be interesting is to see that validation cycle reduce for companies like Bot and others in places where they're operating and where the regulations are a little bit less restrictive, and how it works in California, because there is a carryover, I'll call it a carryover requirement that, you could meet some of the mileage requirements in California for your pilot programs and test programs there from out of state. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot of folks use their data from Texas on these routes that you're talking about to help obtain the right permits and expand in places like California. So that'll be interesting, and we can talk about that more in detail on a next Autonomy Signals down the line. And we got one more risk here that I think Omega calls out. As you pointed out, Bot has an interesting commercial model as an owner-operator. Omega says that fleet size could be a binding constraint on Bot. A 12-tractor fleet cannot simultaneously sustain commercial throughput on existing lanes and validate new geography at scale. If fleet procurement does not accelerate, ODD expansion may need to be sequentially gated. And so the observable here is any public fleet count update or procurement announcement from Bot. And so what do you think? I mean, you know the company well, you were just with them. Is fleet size a potential constraint right now?
Fleet size is a potential constraint, not just for Bot, but for all companies. The vehicles have to be upfitted, and I saw a Bot vehicle going through, if you want to call it the redundancy upgrade, the hardware upgrades. That was really interesting. Yes, it'll be a constraint for anybody until you get to those vehicles. Right now, so as Omega discovered, 12 vehicles, 12 trucks. They're going to have to add more trucks to the fleet. Let's say you get to 50, you get to 100. If and when the Bot fleet gets to 50 to 100 trucks, then I'll say you'll continue to operate a mixed fleet. And I want to point out to the listeners and viewers that the industry is operating a mixed fleet, despite headlines of a certain company. It's a mixed fleet. And what I believe you'll see, and I don't want to really necessarily give percentages here, but you will gradually see a percentage of the Bot fleet operate fully autonomous. And then over time, that number will grow. And then eventually, and this is an assumption, if all goes according to plan, Bot will be operating a fully 100% fully autonomous, no human fleet. And the same for the industry. So that to me is the big metric to watch there. Watch all the autonomous trucking companies and see what percentage of their fleets are fully autonomous. Or in certain ODDs, are they fully autonomous? So that's something else to watch for a metric. So if you're going to run the Dallas to Houston, Houston to Dallas, 2 lanes each way, what percentage of all those runs are autonomous? And that becomes a metric for us to understand where this technology is. And when I say autonomous, that is not a human in the cab. That is not an observer. And most importantly, that is not an individual with a CDL. And why do I say that? Because if there's an individual in the cab, even if they're not sitting in the driver's seat with a CDL, technically, they could take over. Now, this is an assumption because I'm not a lawyer. Under an assumption, that individual, since they are licensed with a CDL, commercial driver's license, could technically take over the vehicle. So we have to watch for those little nuances because this technology is nuances. And you say, well, why are you saying that, Grayson? Look at Waymo. There is not an observer driving around Miami, LA, San Francisco, Phoenix, Nashville with an observer in the vehicle monitoring the Waymos. Even though Waymo is a robotaxi, Waymo set the bar. Kodiak is operating driver out. There's no observer. We were there 2 weeks ago in the Permian Basin. That is the bar to be met. What Kodiak's doing in the Permian Basin, what Bot did from Houston to Dallas, and what Waymo's doing across the country, soon to be across the globe. That's the bar. None. No safety attendant in the vehicle. That's when you know this technology is scaling, and that's what we have to watch for, and that should be the metric.
Well said. Well said. So let's get to Omega's take. Omega assesses that Bot Auto's ODD expansion will remain Texas bound through at least the end of 2026, with the most likely next third commercial lane announcement within the Texas corridor network, either a Houston to San Antonio cumulus upgrade or a new Texas city pair, rather than a cross-state expansion. And so it says the confirming observable is a third fully humanless commercial lane announcement in any geography by Q4 of 2026. With that, Grayson, I'm glad to see you home. I know you've been riding across this country, getting on the ground, riding in the vehicles, talking to all the operators, going on site. It's great work. You've come back with a tremendous amount of knowledge that perhaps few, if any other person really has in this space. And I think I'm grateful that you share it with me. I'm grateful that you're sharing it with the audience. And so with that, the future is bright. The future is autonomous. And we'll see you guys all next week.
We'll see you next week. And as you know, I am going on the road again. So more data, more details.